Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches you to work from your computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time. Our featured guest today is a friend of mine who we have been friends for a fairly long time. And, I'll tell you the story about how we met. But our featured guest today is Melissa Overton. So before launching medicaltraining.me in 2013, Melissa gained more than 15 years of passionate experience as an ER nurse. She translated that enthusiasm into life-saving and life-changing training with classes like CPR and BLS, first aid, advanced life-saving, and as a certified trainer, speaker, and coach with John Maxwell. Melissa volunteers her time with several organizations and serves on the board of directors of the Clayton Chamber of Commerce and chairs of the Workforce Development Committee. When not leading, connecting, and educating, Melissa enjoys family, friends, and shaking her groove thing to some old school hip hop.
You know it.
She's got more rhythm than I have ever had. So now,
Each friend has to bring something to the table.
that's right. That's right. So now, when you first became a nurse, did you ever have the thought that you would become an entrepreneur?
Not when I first became a nurse. It was kind of God's great joke. My parents were entrepreneurs, and I had an opportunity actually to step in and take over my mother's business when she was ready to step back. And I told her no. I don't know what kind of idiot would run their own business. True story. So God laughed and said, okay, well, if you don't want it like this, then we'll do it like that. So no, not to begin with, but I think as nurses, we start to develop a very independent spirit, and we start to see the things that break our heart and make us want to change the world. And so when that ready moment happens, sometimes you just have to jump on it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I love it. So now, what was one of the things that happened that let you know the entrepreneur was for you?
Getting back to that independent spirit, when I was like, this is good, but it would be really cool if they get out of my way and let me do it like this. That's huge, right? And so, it was like, if I could rule the world for a day, I would do da, da, da. And, I'm a very, very spiritual person, and I depend very much on my prayer life to help me kind of get discernment. And so I heard a sermon very early on, and if you know me, you've heard me say it before. The pastor's wife came in and did this brunch at Christmas and said, we always look to people for advice, and that's great, but you got to remember that everyone is going to give you advice based on what they think you should do based on their life circumstances. And that can be really great, but sometimes it can also be very confusing. She said, so instead, when you're really struggling with a huge decision, it's between you and God, and you pray for peace or no peace. And until you get peace, be still. She said, don't do anything. And once I started using that one major prescriptive in my life, things became more clear, and I've been able to be really successful in things because I didn't just jump on everything.
I love it. I love that peace or no peace. And the reality is that, when I first became a nurse, I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur as well. And one of the things that really kind of really drove me in this space was that I decided, okay, I'm just kind of, like you said, I want to make changes that I'm not really allowed to do, and, make a bigger impact around the world. And that's
Yeah.
what the interconnectivity has gained for us. It's given
Right.
us the ability to be able to change people, not just in the state of North Carolina, right? But
Yeah.
across the world. And so I was just like, well, now that I have this ability, let's leverage it, right?
Let's
Let's
do
make
it.
sure that we're delivering value across the board, because everybody does not receive the same education.
Right.
Everybody does not receive the same opportunities. And one of the ladies that I will be interviewing on Monday, she said choices are a result of awareness. And so we can make better choices if we're better aware. And so I was just like, this is golden.
You're exactly right. And don't let education limit you. I literally had this conversation last night, and there were three of us standing there, and we were talking about what the future is going to look like with education. Is college going to be a thing? One of them was like, I don't know that he said, I'm saving money for my kid as they grow up. He said, but I don't know that they're going to end up going to college because not everybody is going the same path anymore. And we started smiling and discussing. One of my brothers that opted not to go to college is making a heck of a lot more money than me. He's got that entrepreneurial spirit. And instead of going and sitting in a classroom for theory, he was in the classroom of life, and he has really translated that into a very successful business. It's something he's very passionate about. And if you didn't get those opportunities early on, don't let that limit you later. Like if you say, well, I always wanted to, what's holding you back? Stop it. Stop it. Get up, do something, dig into an opportunity. There's so many things. I found out that Harvard was offering you could audit free classes at Harvard. And by the time I found out about it, they had to close it down because with the pandemic, they were supporting so much online. But they actually you wouldn't get your degree, but you could get all that education and training through Harvard. Wow. And I was like, I went to ECU, so I need something from Harvard. I was like, I need to balance my wall over here. So don't let those opportunities, don't ever let I wish I had ever stop you from what you're doing. The difference in people who dream and people who succeed is just taking that first step.
That's right. That's right. Now, when you first became an entrepreneur, what were some of your self-limiting beliefs?
Oh gosh, the things I'm telling you. What if I fail? What if they don't like what I have? What if other people were lying to me and telling me that I had a great idea and I had a great vision, and they were just doing it because they were being nice to me, because they were my friend, right? That's that inner voice, especially with women. Men have it some, women have it more, all those, what else? Can I really do this? Am I insane to do this? I actually called when I finally made the decision to make this jump. I called a friend from many years back, and we still loosely stay in touch. And he's one of those friends, if I call him, he'll drop everything, right? And I called him and I said, Dave, I was like, man, I think I've lost my mind. And he said, what you talking about? And I said, I think I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start my own company. And he says, you are about to do the thing that will change your life. He said, I am so proud of you. And I was like, dude, you were supposed to talk me out of this. That's not what I expected when I made that call. I expected him to say, Melissa, what are you thinking? You're going through a separation. You need that stability. You don't need to make those changes. And instead, he was kind of my tipping point with, I had made the decision. I had peace, but I was looking for somebody to pull me back and say, what if? And instead he was like, go for it. And I tell you, you're always going to have those voices, even with the level of success that I've achieved as of now. And I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I'm really just starting to get some good traction on things, but that voice is always there. So you have to recognize, okay, that voice is there. Some people will see that as Satan or the enemy. Some people just say it's self-doubt, but again, don't let it limit you. Understand that those are normal. Now, if everybody around you is echoing what the inner voice is saying, shut up and listen. Right. Okay, you need to stop for a minute and you need to look at this. But understand that you're never going to get 100% green light, and you're never going to feel 100% comfortable. I would advise that you not quit your job unless you really have some savings to back you up and pad you. And I had a very little amount of money to start my life over with. And so it was extremely stressful. I don't know in the situation I was in that I could have done it any differently than what I did. But I don't want anyone to also financially strap themselves because Melissa jumped out the nest and quit everything. I tell people God looks after children and idiots. So I was covered.
That all the time.
All the time, right? Is my life. I actually had a student. She made me a mug. She made me like a water cup that has God looks over children and idiots. But I thought that was so sweet. And every time I drink water out of it every day. And I just look and I smile and I'm like, he really does. but yeah, you're never going to get 100% comfortable. But also at the same time, it's good to talk with people smarter than you to help set up a plan of action so that you don't get out there and fail.
Yes, and that is so true, because what I have dealt with, of course, and I believe that your self-talk is your best talk, right? And like you said, surrounding yourself with friends who are good for you, because there are going to be people that are going to come at you that are not necessarily good for you. You have to
Yeah.
assess whether that's a friend, whether that's a lifetime friend, whether that's a friend who really has your best interest at heart, or whether that's a friend who really does not know who you are and is not able to really, really tell you where you can go and how you can get there, right? Those types of friends are very different. And so I'm super excited that we have forged this friendship and has been
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
amazing connection. And it's one of those lifetime connections. People come
It
into
is.
your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I know that this is just such a lifetime connection. Now, why did you choose the certification business over other businesses that you could have chosen?
I think it's like they talk about when you find your purpose, you find what gives you heartburn, and then you find what you love. I didn't wake up and want to be an American Heart instructor. I was voluntold, hey, congratulations, you got this job, and now part of your job is going to be to become an American Heart instructor and take over the program for the hospital because that made sense. I literally tried to quit my job and go back to staffing. I'll be honest with you, I was that afraid of it, and I was married at the time, and my husband said, "What is wrong with you? Like everything that people throw at you, you can do, and now this is what's going to run you off." And I was like, "Dude," I was like, "I'm down with learning the information, and I'm down with the class." I said, "But the problem is at the end of the class, I always feel like when they give me that test, that like I got the wrong test or I was in the wrong class, and I always felt less than." And he said, "Melissa, if you feel that way, then other people probably feel that way too. What would you do different?" And so that was, besides two children, that was the other really huge gift that he gave me, was pushing me. And I said, fine. And, I'm terrified. And he's called me a chicken, and I'm an ER nurse with three brothers, and I'm like, fine, then I'm going to give it a shot. But if I hate it, I'm going to go back to staffing. And he said, well, that's good. You were a good ER nurse. I said, I was awesome. He said, yeah, and humble. So that was an opportunity to do it, but what I learned is I had to really get honest with myself about what I understood versus what I was afraid of. And when I started teaching it a little bit different, watching the light bulb go off in the eyes, you could see the change in the student, right? And when I saw that connection and I saw that aha moment, it gave me an instant high. And I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. And, my business has grown beyond this, but that's how medicaltraining.me started. Being, who I am, I told God I was going to do this in my 50s once the kids were out of school. And he laughed again. He's like, remember when you said what kind of idiot runs their own business? He's like, well, now you're going to do this at 37, not in your 50s. So it has been a true journey, but it came out of a heartburn moment. What really gave me heartburn. And then when I started thinking about it, I used to think, I just want to be at the bedside so I can save a life. And I kept watching those Johnson Johnson commercials when they talked about nurse educators save millions of lives because of the lives they touch and blah, blah, blah. And I always thought, well, that's kind of cheesy. And then I started really thinking about it. I was like, my God, Melissa, how many lives could you impact if you could get this point across so that people were better at the bedside to change multiple lives?
That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
kind of how I went in.
And one of the things that I do have to say, because that's how we connected from the very beginning,
Yeah.
because of the quality of the education that you provided, right? And
Yeah.
the light bulb went off for me. And once that light bulb went off for me, I mean, I was in her class, and just to let everyone know kind of how we connected, I was in her class, and when she started teaching ACLS, before I had I was in her class, I was like, am I really going to pass this? And then once I got there, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to pass this. I know that I'm going to pass this. And then not only that, it was the engagement, it was the interaction, it
Yeah.
was those for lack of better words, booty shaking moments, right? You were up at the front of the class and you were so funny and you were so engaging. And I said, I really like her. And so, I went up to the front of the class and we sat down and we talked and we have been friends ever since. But it was because of the fact that number one, you were engaging. Number two, you gave it to us like we were supposed to have it, right? And that's one of the things that I've always been very intentional about in my own business is because I learned a lot from that moment, right? I
Oh,
learned
thank you.
that you can deliver the information, but it needs to be transformational, right? And if it's not transformational, I mean, we're all educated beyond our obedience, right? Till we get in front of the room and until we try to transform people's lives, then things will not connect in that manner. So I'm super excited about the fact that,
Well,
go ahead.
and you're exactly right with that, because here's the whole thing is there's information you had to have, but it has to be delivered in a way that you can hear it.
Right.
Because if you can't get people relaxed enough to hear what's got to be said, they're not going to retain it. You can do enough to pass a class or you can do enough to check a box. But if you really want something to make a difference in your life, you have to get into a mind space where you are prepared and open to receive it. So I give a disclaimer. There's only one student I've ever really alienated teaching. And I was at Duke School of Medicine. And like, as I'm talking, because I tell people I teach like you're in kindergarten. It's not because I don't think you're smarter, but you've already heard it the other way. So it's my opportunity to break it down differently. And there was one guy and his head kept doing this. And I was like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And he was like, excuse me. And I was like, when you graduate from medical school, literally tomorrow, what are you going to do? He said, neurosurgery. I said, you might want to go talk to the instructor down the hall because I think you're going to like him better than me. I'm just going to irritate you. Right. And I recognized that my style didn't connect. And fortunately, we were in a place where we had 10 different instructors break out. I was like, dude, go swap with somebody that thinks they're in hell down the hall. Send them back to me, because again, he was going to pass the class because he was going to be a neurosurgeon. He had the bandwidth, he had the capacity, but he wasn't in a place where he was going to be an open vessel to learn anything. And it was just because our styles didn't match. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I break it down like you're in kindergarten, and my instructors do now. That's the exciting thing. Also, is to take a brand and get to work with other people that I'm not trying to carbon copy me. I tell them, be you. I picked you because of who you are. But like, think about some of these principles. This is what makes our brand stand out different from other people.
I love it. My husband said, my friend is a boss. We're all friends. We were able to obtain our John Maxwell Leadership Coaching Training certificates at the same time.
Yeah.
What has this meant for your business?
Pretty amazing. Like, number one, John Maxwell is just a really neat guy. And I think I would pay a good amount of money just to have like a fireside chat with him. I mean, he's so amazing. And he's a common sense guy with a huge base in spirituality, and going to his training lets you see other people that had the same kind of energy and the same kind of fire, and receiving that certification, although sometimes it didn't change who I was and the content that I'm delivering, the fact that I had that certification behind me has helped open doors because it validated who I am in the market. All of a sudden, a company I've been doing a lot of work for right now that I've just had so much fun and completely out of healthcare, right? And he's like, isn't it funny that you have to go out of your backyard to find credible people? He's like, we have some really great people in our organization that could probably deliver some of the content that you're doing, but the staff can't hear them because they're in our yard, right? And I was like, yeah, you're telling me I had to go to Florida and California to all of a sudden become credible, and we kind of laughed over that. So having a certification, it's kind of like everything else. You could be doing CPR on people, and you could be helping out with cardiac arrest in your department, but until you're ACLS certified, people wonder whether or not you're credible. So it's kind of interesting how that works.
And I think that, that is an interesting concept because of the fact that, I was talking to one his name is Corey Barrier, and he is a sales coach. And he was talking with me about the fact that there was this physician who charges $10,000 a day, right? And the only reason why he's able to get that type of money is because he has doctor in front of his name, right?
Mhm.
And And the reality is that a lot of times you will encounter people who are much better at their craft, right? And but just because of the fact that he has doctor for a name, it gives him credence, it gives him credit, those credentials,
Yeah.
and he's able to do that. But that's another day for another story.
I was gonna say, and as an entrepreneur, you've got to look as if you've got a dream. Okay, you've got the knowledge, you've got the experience. Is there something you're going to be missing that is going to slow you down? The John Maxwell certification, honest to God, I didn't go so that I could be a John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach. I went to grow myself as a leader. I said, I can't afford to go right now and get a master's in adult education, or I really would go back now and get an MBA if I were doing anything. So what can I do to invest in myself and push myself? And it was after I got back that I realized that, hey, I don't have it framed yet, Viola. I'm sure that doesn't shock you, but like that certificate is like in my bookcase up against the wall. Like I didn't even frame it yet. And I'm thinking, my gosh, sometimes you have to stop and invest in yourself so that you can add value to others. And that's kind of where that went.
And one of the reasons why I even first started reading one of his books, because I first started reading 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Mhm.
The reason why I started reading that book was for that very reason. Because, again, I had people around me and they were friends who said, okay, we need to evaluate what you're doing at this point, right?
Okay.
It completely, it was a game changer. It changed my whole life.
Cool.
So now you recently pivoted into leadership training. What was your primary motivating factor that led you to do this?
I had a friend who does some business consulting, and we started talking, and she was like, "You realize your market is bigger than healthcare?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I could talk to anybody." She's like, "No, I don't think you understand. With your dynamic personality and the way that you deliver information, you need to convert this for non-medical." And so I started off, honestly, I took a preceptor development class that I've taught for years, and I started taking the medicine out of it. And then I started going, okay, it was interesting. The novice to expert theory, Benner, there's actually a whole theory like that that's non-medical, right? So I was able to find that and put that into place. And then really start stretching and growing. I think if you want to be successful, you can never be comfortable with what you've created. I think you always have to be looking at continuous process improvement. And so those classes, even though I've taught them for years, they're literally like I taught the same class Tuesday back to back on leadership development. It's like part one of a 2-day series. And it was 2 half days, and I taught the same class in the morning and the afternoon. Wasn't the same class. Like I still was making micro shifts, what works. And then also reading the room, reading the audience. So that's how that all kind of started out, was someone else seeing potential in me that maybe I had self-limiting beliefs on, that has really, again, opened the door. And as I've listened to people, if you've got smart people in your life, listen to them, because sometimes they can see it before you see it. And that's okay. If it's credible, roll with it.
And that's funny because that makes me think back to that. Because when we were coming back from the SES conference, we were listening to that TD Jakes and Stephen Furtick interview, and TD Jakes said that he's always critiquing,
Yes.
his interviews. He's always critiquing the things that he says, and I think that critique makes you better, right?
Yeah.
It always, because if you get settled with where you're at, then you're not moving forward. And that's
right.
the world is moving forward, therefore you're moving backwards.
Right.
You have to be very intentional. And I think that is one thing that I love about you, and the fact that I hang out with you. And so, you some people, some total of the people that you hang out with. And so,
God help you.
it makes me move forward as well. Now, those of us that know you well know that your mom has been very influential in your life. How has her business acumen helped you in maintaining a successful business?
To begin with, it felt like a blessing and a curse, because when you have been raised by people who are entrepreneurs, they always know more than you, which is good, right? That's a good thing, but it also adds a layer of pressure. But I can tell you that just having her to bounce some ideas off here and there really helped me dodge some curves. That's why, again, you got to be conscious of who's surrounding you when you're going on a journey like this. There were simple things like when I got the wait a minute, you can get all these magazines to sit in your office and it only costs this a month. And then it ended up being like $1 bazillion. She's like, don't do that. It's a hack. She's like, I've already done it, So it was simple things like that to, I'm thinking about bringing help on board. What does that look like? Or how do I coach an employee or a contractor? Because I don't have employees, but how do you coach a contractor when you have a critical decision? So it's been a blessing that she's been my sounding board for that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
She's super.
she's amazing.
Yes. Do you think the nurses have the ability to utilize the knowledge that they already know to go into business for themselves? And what do you think stops some nurses from seeking entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. That's the whole thing, is what's giving you heartburn? What's giving you heartburn that you say, you know what, if I had an opportunity, would I do it? And you may have some huge idea, or you may have some small common sense idea that just, that's how think about all those new devices that come out every single month. And you're like, I could have invented that. I thought of that, those stupid cat things to clean your central lines, those little cap things. I've been saying, you know how peritoneal dialysis has a little cap on the end so that the catheter is always soaking in betadine or whatever? I was like, we should put those on central lines so they don't get central line infection. Daggone it. Like, let's get an idea like that. We could be drinking boat drinks and really bad bathing suits right now, right? With cabana boys. If we would act on some of these ideas, yeah. She roll with it. What's going to limit you? Oh my God, I can't. Or I'm so comfortable making the money I'm making that I don't want to risk. Because I can tell you, I went without for a long time. It is not an easy journey. And that's why I said you need to plan it, make sure you have income. But a lot of people won't move because they like that money they're making. They want to travel. They want to do, travel nursing and make all this money up. But what are you doing with that money? Can you put a nest egg aside while you're working on your entrepreneurship idea?
And I think that one of the things too is that we have to understand that we're either building someone else's dream or we're building our own. That's number one.
Oh, I like that.
When we have this way of thinking, we're just going to sit right here and we're not going to move, then things come about. And like I was talking to my daughter, and she had this instance where she was living in an apartment, and they decided to make the apartment into school housing, right? And so she was upset because she had to move and she had to figure out somewhere to stay. And I said, right now is your chance to understand that you now need to make the decisions for yourself so that no one else can make those decisions for you.
Yep.
That is a game changer.
Right.
You need to take more control of your life so that if they say that you have to leave, then it's okay. And it doesn't create stress in your life. But that lack of, is either, again, someone else is making the decision or you making the decision. One of the two. And you are your best advocate. You're your best person. You are the one that can create that space for you to grow, to get bigger, to get better. It starts with an idea, as you said.
Right. So, you're right.
So now, how do you know what things are priority in your business? Like, do you think that nursing profession has helped us with prioritization?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I started thinking about this because you had sent me that thought ahead of time, and I'm so grateful because you know what I kept thinking about is I kept thinking, how do you compare nursing to business? When you walk in the room, you're going to shake your head. When you walk in the room and somebody has done pooped the bed, you got to clean them up before you get anything else done. And in entrepreneurship, I think when you make a mess, you need to clean it up and you need to own it right away. And prioritization is if you got a mess before you get into anything else, clean up your mess first, right? So that's what kept coming to mind is, you look at, prioritization, taking care of things. Prioritization, make sure you're not spending what you don't have, right? Making sure that you've got the resources you need. And prioritization, take care of the people that need to be taken care of. So as you start your business and you're growing, take care of yourself because you're your best investment, right? And then take care of the people that are helping you along the journey. So if someone is volunteering their time to help mentor you or do something else, you need to make sure you invest back in that. You don't just take from that account of kindness. You've got to really put back in. And I think those are things that we learned as nurses, right? You've got to put in as well as take out.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And April said, "Oh my God, I said the same thing." Now, what is a book that you have read that has been most impactful in your life as a business owner?
Yeah, because there's so many books, right? So the E Myth by Michael Gerber.
Uh-huh.
Hang on, let me move this. I'm terrible at this. Michael Gerber, E Myth. It doesn't look very sexy or exciting. A lot of entrepreneurs will tell you that they were given this book, they were told to read this book. It kind of reads like a parable. Just because you have a really good idea and you're really good, like if you bake cakes and you make the best cakes in the whole wide world, that is awesome. But that doesn't mean you're going to have a successful cake business. So this really walks you through a lot of the pitfalls that people fall into. And like I said, it's an easy read, and going back and looking at it, I think I'm going to read it again. 9 years later, what is it that I can get out of this book again? Because like I said, it's an easy read. It's 250 pages. And it was a light read as far as it didn't make my head hurt. Um, so yeah, that would be my recommendation. Get started with that. If you're further along than that, the book Traction by Gino Wickham. Traction by Gino Wickham does a really great job of saying, where do you want to be in 10 years and working backwards. And so sometimes we're like, I know I want to be there, and that's great, but what are you doing to get there? And so that book really methodically helps you. I literally, as I was reading it, I had to get out a notebook and paper and start making notes because it was coming so quick and I was afraid I'd forget it. 8 years later, I printed it off, and I'm working with a business consultant right now on structure of my business. And I'm like, these are the notes that I made 8 years ago. And we just sit there and go, wow, wow. That book really has helped me so that I can become even more intentional.
And one of the things that we do, because we have a clubhouse room, and the clubhouse room we have every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what we talk about is that specific thing, your big audacious goals, because the reality is that you want to know what your big audacious goals is, whatever that looks like, right? Whether
Yeah,
it looks like you traveling all over the country, all over the world, whether it looks like landing on a beach somewhere, whether it looks like you having a house manager, okay, you have big enough
right.
house manager, or for me, I want a chef, whatever that looks like, right?
That's a
It
good
gives
idea.
you the ability to work back from that, because you want to begin with the end in mind, as my coach Susie Carter says. So now, where can the audience find you?
Where can the audience find me? Medicaltraining.me. So I'm working on my second brand launch, Illuminated Training, but I'm not quite there yet. So if you want me, you can get me Melissa, Melissa, at medicaltraining.me. Would love to connect with you.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. I love it. So now we have a 4-day business challenge on June 8th, 2021. It is free, and we will be teaching business mindset strategies to attract your ideal client, speaking as another stream of income, and the power of social media. You can sign up at vpnursing.com. So I'm super excited for that. So again, thank you for being on Welcome Infusion with a morning infusion with Dr. V. We're intentional about connecting you with leaders such as Melissa that have overcome, so that you know that the possibilities are endless. And I am Dr. V, where our coaching program teaches you to work from your computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.